There's no words coming out, no voice coming out.
Yeah.
What's
Okay.
it called?
Just Tom through.
Yorkshire Messiah.
No, voice. What's the app you want for recording voices on your phone?
Well, I've got it here. I've got a
Oh, you
video on
record it?
anyway. Yeah.
Oh well, that's okay.
For many, many years, I've had this conversation with 2 or 3 of you this evening. I've had the honour of looking after a very famous Old English actress called Barbara Lee Hunt, who many of you may remember from the television series of Pride and Prejudice with Colin Firth.
Oh yeah.
And she was Lady Catherine de Bourgh,
Yes.
amongst many other things. Well, I've looked after Barbara for many, many years, and sadly she died on the 16th of September. And Barbara lived in a 600-year-old 6-bedroom cottage near Stratford-on-Avon, and was a hoarder. So I have the task at the moment of clearing out this place. And in going through, she gave me this. I heard her give it at a Samling masterclass thing that I was involved in. And I had sung, and she read this, and her husband was Richard Pascoe, which the Brits amongst us will know is a very famous Shakespearean actor. And he did. Do you remember the thing I did about the cats? In the beginning was the word, and the word was dog. Do you remember I did like and he finished up by saying, and the cat didn't give a shit one way or the other.
Yes,
do you remember me doing that?
No,
in
I
the
can't
chat?
remember
I think
that.
that was the following year after I'd done this one.
Right.
Anyway, Richard had done this and Barbara had done this, and when I was clearing out Barbara's a couple of weeks just before Christmas, I found her original copy from which my copy had come, which I had read when I was in Wanganui. So that's the background to it.
Wow.
Oh lordy. Most of us are familiar with the words and music of the great oratorio, The Messiah. But Bill Jones of Golcar, a little village in the West Riding of Yorkshire, had never been to a performance, and he tried to persuade a friend to go with him to Huddersfield Town Hall to hear the famous choral society. But his friend refused. Nay, he said. That sort of music's nowt in my line. I like a good comic song or a lively jig, but I reckon nowt to this sacred stuff, as they call it. It's beyond me. And another thing, there'll be none of our sort there. It'll be mostly religious folk and swells done up in boiled shirts, and women with nowt much on. Nay, you go by this scene, and then you call me about it, tell me about it sometime. So Bill went by himself. The next time the old pals met, the following conversation took place. Well, come on, how'd you get on at the Messiah? That was Birmingham.
We won't tell.
Well said, Bill. It were fair champion. I would not missed it for all the tea in China. When I got there, town hall were crowded. It were chock full, and I had a great job to get a seat. And no wonder, it were all them singers. They took up half the gallery. There were a chap larking about on the organ. He weren't playing anything particular, just running his hands up and down as if he were practising. Well, after a while, a lot of chaps came in carrying fiddles, and then they brought in the Messiah. Well, at least I took it to be. It were the biggest instrument on the platform, and it were covered in a big green bag. Anyhow, they took the bag off it, and the bloke rubbed its belly with a stick, and you should have heard it groan. It was something like the last expiring moments of a dying cow. I was just thinking of going when a little chap came on, all dolled up in a white coat and with a flower in his buttonhole, and everything went dead quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. He had a stick in his hand, and he started waving it about and all. The singers stared at him. I reckon they was wondering what the matter was with him. Then they started to sing, and I'm back into Birmingham. Then they started to sing. And they hadn't been going long before they were fighting like cats. I reckon they should have walloped one or two of them with that stick. First one side, they'd said they were king at glory, and then the other side said they were. I'm gone into Birmingham again, I'm so sorry. And then they went at it hammer and tongs, but it fizzled out, so I've no idea which side won. Then there was a bit of a bother about some sheep that was lost. I don't know who they belonged to, but one lot of singers seemed very fond of mutton, because they kept saying, all we like sheep. I couldn't help saying to the chap sitting next to me that sheep's all right in moderation, but I like a bit of beef myself. And he looked daggers at me and said, shh, so I shushed. Then a bloke stood up and sang by himself. They must have been his sheep, because he said every mountain and hill should be made low, and I thought they'd be sure to find them. Then the organist started banging, and the rest of the band was just as mad, because as they were sawing them fiddles, I thought they were going to go through them. I bet everyone was glad when that chap sat down. A lot of women stood up after that, and all of them looked as if they were, well, getting on a bit. Some of them must have been 65 if they were a day. They sang, "Unto us a child is born," and the chap shouted back, "Wonderful." I thought, wonderful, it's a blooming miracle. After that, they sobered down a bit and sang this little lass sang Joyce greatly. I'd never heard of her myself, but the chaps had, because they looked mighty pleased about it. Then a bloke got up and said that he were King of Kings, and another said he was, and then blow me, they all started arguing about it. I was getting a bit fed up when everybody stood up where they were, and they all suddenly shouted, "Hallelujah, it's going to rain forever and ever." Well, at that, I jumped up and made for the door. I'd had me money's worth, and besides, I was thinking that if it were going to rain forever and ever, I'd better get home before the flood came. It were good, though. You should have come too, but oh, I do hope they find them sheep.
Can you imagine that in the shape of the face just fell? He did it really well.